we're dealing with Pasifika people, right? So they all kind of understand this trauma. And that was something that I felt on set that day, is that there was an understanding.
Even if it's fake, even if it's acting, just purely being on the set and looking around at all these people, everybody looks like they're in the period. You're hearing the screams, people are running back and forth, there's smoke, there's blood, like, it's a lot.
In this talk story session, we see through the eyes of Mainei Kinimaka, who portrays the character Heke. Her Kanaka sense and genetic memory carry layers of depth to her role and the significance of that experience. Aloha. Today we're going to talk about episode 8. Got a special guest, Mainei Kinimaka. We go back, so it's exciting to have you here. This is something I really wanted to get into. I think audiences are really going to get into this episode. And actually, I do have an announcement. This is a huge spoiler talk story session. So you have to watch episode 8 before you watch this. And that is a hands down, like, you have to do that because we're going to get into some stuff, right?
Yeah.
We got a lot. But before we do that, we go back a ways. You started working with Jason around...
in 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Right? We did a project together, which was wonderful. It really truly was wonderful to see you work. And it was one of these situations that it wasn't about giving you an opportunity. It was about letting people see what you could do. And we did Last Manhunt together.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun. That was crazy for me.
Yeah.
Just getting thrown into the fire.
Well, that's what it was. It was like, because you didn't have like a trained background of acting or anything like that. Like, what was your intro to acting?
It was pretty much just the Academy of Gypsies. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Honestly, being around you, Jay, Brian, everybody from On the Roam pretty much. And because the first real on-screen thing I ever had was through C.
Right.
But the purpose of being with Jason on C was to train to be on set for The Last Manhunt.
Right.
So it was kind of like this backwards engineer thing where I ended up being on camera, but I was also working on that show as an assistant, which ended up being a common theme throughout our entire friendship. Yeah.
And the Chief of War journey. Oh my gosh, we gotta talk about that. So, real quickly though, I think Jason has the ability to see something in people that whether or not they see it in themselves or whatever, like he saw it in you because, like you said, like having you be a part of C was because, you know, he really saw something that you could carry and help push another project that we were working on. And to be honest, you look fantastic on screen, but he sees something, and it's very rare to have that ability because he saw it with Kaina. And to be honest, like I didn't see it with Kaina right away. It became a thing that, you know, it needs to be reinforced because how brave could you be to meet someone, not really know them and say, you're the person. You're going to be the person. Like that's not the way it works. And that's part of the conversation and one of the biggest reasons why after you did Last Manhunt, we knew there was a place for you in Chief of War. It was just a matter of curating it and making it possible. But like from your perspective, like I think people would be interested to hear like what was the audition process like, or what was this whole, just like how do you get into a show like this?
Right. I think I had a kind of unique experience, maybe compared to some of the other casts, because the audition process was really up and down, long, twisty, windy for this whole show for everybody. But also being, you know, working on the crew as well as working on the cast was really interesting because I had so many different kuleana crossing over.
Right.
But the audition process was, especially for the wahine, was really crazy because we had so many rounds of auditions over and over and over on Zoom, in real life, on Zoom again, because we were kind of spread all over Pasifika. But yeah, we had, gosh, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 auditions over what felt like 10 months almost.
It was long. Yeah, it was long.
Yeah. And at that point, we were all reading for ahumanu, but it was a really great way to test everybody's different strengths and see who was suited for this female role or this female role, because we all could have done it, but it would have been a different
version.
Ahumanu, yeah. And so it was really interesting to see like how that process brought us all kind of into the perfect character.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad you're pointing this out, because the one area that was difficult in the casting isn't people's ability. It's like for example, when you watch a movie and you see the actor, they generally are playing variations of the same character in everything they do. And so it's not always about, do you have the ability to act? It's, does that character fit you?
Yeah.
Is that character really an embodiment of who you are and what you're able to do? And I think the one disadvantage that we have is we come from a people that generally haven't had access to the industry. So there's not as much trained actors and people that have built this craft.
Yeah.
And we're casting very specifically within, the Hawaii community, Kanaka Maoli, and by extension, our cousins and relatives around Pasifika.
Yeah.
And so, but our casting pool is smaller.
Yeah.
So it is a matter of, that's why the process took so long, right? Because it's a matter of like, hey, let's audition, everybody kind of in this role, but let's see what they're giving us and different characters and all that. So yeah, it was pretty nuts. Yeah. But you mentioned your different kuleana, but I don't think people really understand. So what is it that you were doing at the time besides auditioning?
So at the time, during the entire audition process, during the whole pre-production, so since 2018, I was Jason's personal assistant. And what that kind of entails is like doing everything that he could ask for on whatever it's going to be on any given day, coordinating him with the production, his lines, his schedules, his dog, his kids, all of that stuff, his friends. And so during that audition phase, we were actually in London shooting Fast and Furious 10. Mm-hmm. So sometimes like my auditions would be in the middle of the night.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And I remember I'd be on Zoom with you guys and Doug would be like, why is it dark outside? What's going on? I'm like, it's 2 a.m. I'm in London. But
I remember talking with Jason because I didn't want, that job, that you were doing to impair or hinder your ability for this character.
Yeah.
And, but Jason he's so particular, and it's hard to get into his inner circle, and he trusts you implicitly, but he kept telling me, and it wasn't out of a selfishness for the job that he needed to get done. He was just like, she can do it.
Yeah.
She can do, and that was the thing. It was like, you not only had this ability to focus and hone in on the character, the arc of the character, the growth of the character, but, Olelo Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And you were still working as Jason's assistant at the time, which I did. I voiced a few times. You got to let her go. Yeah. Like, she needs to focus on this, but you just have this capacity that I really haven't seen in very many people. And I think that's, in a big way, it's an attribute that is going to continue to carry you on. Is acting the thing that you want to keep going in, or the thing you want to keep doing?
Yeah. And I feel like what you said, it's such an attribute to how Jason is, in the sense that I'm really, really grateful that he trusted me and he saw that ability within me to continue to do both, because I wanted to do both. Mm. I would never in a million years give up the opportunity to be on that set every single day.
Right.
Because, for me, I love acting. Acting is amazing. I would love to continue acting the rest of my life if I can. But I also love all of it. Like the whole filmmaking process is what I'm really passionate about, even, from writing. Got to take some pointers from you, but, writing and directing, all the cinematography. Right. I just love everything about the process. So I was really grateful that Jason allowed me to remain his assistant the whole time, because there are so many people. I mean, Angie was concerned for me in the beginning too, one of our producers, and she was like, "Are you sure you want to keep doing this? It's like a huge responsibility." Even Temeura came up to me and he was like, "Girl, you sure you want to do this?" I was like, yeah, it's fine. I've been doing it forever. And he was like, okay, well, you just remember that at the end of the day, the thing that matters the most is what's going to end up on the story, because the story is forever. And I thought that was really powerful, because I was like, in a way, I was like, oh God, Temeura just, it wasn't scary, but it was like, Uncle's telling you what's up, but also...
You really have started to prove yourself, though, beyond acting, because we've actually had conversations over the years about writing, and, your ability behind the camera is becoming quite evident. That's really the reason why I asked, because, acting feels like a very comfortable wheelhouse for you, and I think it is a career that will sustain you. But for you to have this other part of you and recognizing that it's important to be nurtured, it's important to be on set, to see everything, because you were always there, and you were, very much a sponge on production, which is wonderful to see.
Yeah, I definitely learned from Jason that, especially in Hawaii, like in our circumstances now, if you want our stories to be told, you need to be an active participant in the storytelling. Yeah. So that was one thing of him training me. It was always like, you can't just be an actress. Right. That's great. But if you want to be an actress, if you want to have your stories told, if you want to go the step further, you have to know how to produce, because the producers get the wheels turning and they get the product off the ground. You have to understand writers, because the writers are like the heart of the story. And, he showed me how important every single tiny role is, even to the PAs, the crafty, like everybody's kuleana adds up to propelling the story forward. So yeah, I definitely attribute to him, because that's exactly the way he works too, which is kind of, and you work as well. Yeah. So it's kind of, how we all get.
Well, I think this is a fun part of the conversation too, because a lot of people don't realize that Jason is more than, the face and the man and whatever in front of the camera. Like, he is 100% a true filmmaker. Like, this guy understands, he can talk, cameras and stuff. Like, him and Brian Mendoza's dynamic around, direction, his ability for story with me, and then just his eye and his understanding of the process, the producing ability. Like, people don't realize he is hands-on in every aspect. Yeah. And so, that's really one of the best schools you could have really had, was just being next to him and absorbing all that.
Yeah. Super grateful.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Heke, your character. Landed perfectly with you, and I want to kind of get into a little bit, like, what was the process of you getting to know her and what you needed to do in order to play this character, and knowing where the character begins and ends and all of that. Like, what was the process for you to get into a character?
Yeah, well, I really love Heke. I really, really love Heke, so thank you for Heke. I feel like, looking back on the early days of production, having Justin Chan as our director for episode 1 and 2, he cares so much about all of the actors and all of the performances. So the steps that he kind of went through with Siua and I, who plays Nahi, to kind of prepare us and to get us to really create like a bond and a friendship. I feel like that time spent in that early process kind of created truly the Heke and Nahi characters, because of our dynamic in real life. Right. Like, there kind of is a comedy to the incongruence between the size of Heke and the size of Nahi, and also to like the size of Nahi and the softness of Nahi's spirit at the same time. So that relationship between these two very kind of soft, caring sort of people in this landscape of war is a really interesting contrast to the whole story. And it kind of opens up this opportunity for these two characters to kind of have this little bubble. But I think Heke is probably the character that I've connected on a personal level with the most. So I found it pretty easy to kind of get in the rhythm, especially after all of our auditions with Justin and first couple of days of filming too. And I liked being the little the little moment of peace in the chaos of the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, so just to kind of address a few things that we have, this is based on actual history. These stories exist. They're real. There's a history behind, many of these characters. They're all real people. Heke is not a real person, right? Heke was created for the show. She serves a specific purpose, and but there are very few of those. But she was created to balance out that we have a lot of warriors in the show. We have a lot of tension that comes through the political process, and with chiefs, and just that warrior culture is being portrayed through the politics and all that. So we needed to balance it out, and Heke was created for that. And actually, a little inside story, whether we've talked about this, but I think it's just a nice thing to note, is creating Heke was really a nod for us to honor the beautiful cinematography, the beautiful film work that has come out of Aotearoa. Because Jason and I are both big fans of Once We're Warriors. It was one of those movies that came at a time in our lives where we see some form of representation that looks like us, sounds like us, and then and in some ways embodies this warrior spirit. But there was something really, really interesting in that movie, is that in a modern context, it's representing warriors, but there's also this character that represents the innocence and what happens to that innocence when they get caught up into this warrior culture. So Heke, in the creation of that character, we were being mindful of that. And originally in Once We're Warriors, that character's name is Grace.
Yeah.
And, we'd considered, was there a way to give her that same name? And it just didn't, Aloha or whatever, it doesn't quite feel like the kind of name that it needed to be. So we decided to name her Heke in honor of the Heke family. And Once We're Warriors. So that's how the character was created. And it was, again, it was so perfect for you. And you played her so well. And that's why when we get into episode 8, and for as heavy as it gets, her storyline really kind of comes to a head here. So let's talk about episode 8 for a second.
Okay.
Right? In the beginning of episode 8, we're following right after Olowalu, basically, right? This massacre that happens with Captain Simon Metcalf, turning his boat and firing grape shots onto the beach. So episode 8 starts right there. How was it filming that scene?
Yeah, well, reading the scripts and knowing the history is one thing, and then when you get there on the day is a completely different situation, because you kind of sink into the fact that this is your kuleana to kind of have to display the heaviness and the reality of that occurrence. And it was a lot to process, I think, for all of us. And specifically, the location that we shot on that day was in Aotearoa. And I remember talking to some of our friends, just extras, that were Maori. They're like, man, this is such a crazy thing in the story. That would be so sad. I was like, it happened, it's not fiction. This really, really happened. And just the heaviness of processing all of that, and also seeing it with your own eyes. I know everyone's acting and stuff, but the beginning of episode 8, the opening, I was with a few girls who I just became friends with on set, and one of them, their faces, it's terrible, So even if it's fake, even if it's acting, just purely being on the set and looking around at all these people, everybody looks like they're in the period. You're hearing the screams. People are running back and forth. There's smoke. There's blood. It's a lot. So I think for all of us, we all really felt the duty to portray that Olowalu episode. Yeah.
Well, and I think, we're dealing with Pasifika people, right? So they all kind of understand this trauma.
Absolutely.
And that was something that I felt on set that day,
Yeah.
is that there was an understanding,
Yeah.
you know, whether or not they have direct lineage to that story or not. I mean, it was just a moment that everybody understood the trauma.
Yeah.
And that made it, one, it was difficult to write. Two, it was difficult to prep because we also didn't portray it in the way that it was actually done.
Mm-hmm.
We had to pull back because it would have been too difficult and too hard to see. But in Hawaii, and you know this, but that day is referred to the Day of Spilled Brains. And it was because of how bad it was. We made it to where it was like the boat was out there and firing on the shore. But in reality, there were hundreds of canoes that were right next to the boat. And to try to film that type of impact and, you know, that type of close range, and it became a decision that was going to be too much.
Yeah.
So we needed to find a way to balance it. And even doing that and what we were able to put on screen, it's still very difficult to watch. So that was hard. And I mean, we open it with you, you know what I mean? We open it with you, you know, there on the beach and trying to process this, you know, and it's us trying to find ways to deal with this trauma, you know, that is alive in our stories. So yeah, it was a hard day. Yeah,
it was a hard day. And even though it was a hard day, I mean, it was still even harder to like watch at home.
Yeah.
I think because we've never really got to see this level, you know, before of our stories being told, and then to see you got this level, you've got like these highs and lows throughout the story, and then you get to see that at that level is really intense. And I watched it with my dad and my uncles and aunties, and like the room was just dead silent because it's a lot to take in, especially for, you know, watching it with some of my older family and kupuna and stuff. You know, it's hard to have to watch them process that and see it, but in a way, you know, it really brings forward those conversations that are so important. And I think it, you know, needs to be shared, but also sharing it with the world, and having that change people's perceptions and people's understanding of Hawaii, what we've gone through. When people can see something, they can feel something, they can start to understand. And I think the impact is beyond what we can say about, you know, it's something that's really going to change I think the hearts and minds of lots of people.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, what better reason to do it for us to be able to face it, have an open conversation about it, you know, how, you know, who was right, who was wrong, how could it be avoided? I mean, all that kind of stuff is really the conversation starter. I mean, we had a great conversation with Kalikua about that episode, and, you know, some of his insights was immediately like, well, how do we apply this lesson to us today? You know, what is it that we're seeing? How are we experiencing and unpacking an event like this for us to be able to look inside? And, you know, that's a great conversation piece, you know, how do we do that? But yeah, me too. I watched that with my parents. My father, like on my father's side, we have, you know, a direct lineage to Ōpūnui, you know, people that were from that place. And yeah, to see him react to it is really hard. Like, I seem emotional, but it's actually his fault. My dad's incredibly emotional. It's not me. Totally. Yeah, no, it was, that's what it was. And the fact that you were acting, that's why I wanted to have that conversation with you, is like, you were there and you had to, it's one thing to witness it, you know, but it was another thing to be in it, in the smoke, even though it's all fake, it looks so real.
It looks so real,
the nails sticking out.
Yeah.
All of that. Like, that was...
And the way that Brian thought that as well, he wanted it to be a oneer. So you really are like sitting with it and feeling the whole thing. So when we did the scene, it's like, you know, when we actually, before you roll and everything like that, people are already moving. So it's like, you know, you're like in about 2 minutes of absolute chaos in a way. So you're really like, man. And then of course, everybody on the side is just watching. So yeah, it was really intense, but it was beautiful at the same time. I mean, Brian did such a amazing job.
Well, the way that
episode.
he tracked each character's response
Yeah.
to the trauma is also, it was a brilliant way to bring out character.
Yeah.
Right. Also to keep us, the audience, connected to each of them, but then finding a way to bring us back to, you know, something as heavy as, you know, losing Mainei, right? That character, this idea of hope, like this idea of, you know, she understood what it would take for Hawaii to be able to at least gain some autonomy and a foothold with this. The pressure of the outside world is to control the commerce. Don't let it fall into somebody's hands, because that wasn't the thought process for Hawaiians, right? Like, what do you mean? Try to own all that?
Yeah.
Try to, like, you know, like, we utilize it. It's free for all of us. She's like, that's not the way that it's viewed, right? It's viewed as whoever can take it owns it, you know. And that was another thing. So episode 8 starts off with that really heavy scene, the loss of Mainei, but we are not done there, right?
Yeah.
That kicks us off into, you know, obviously Kaiana and Kamehameha are going to have a conversation based on everything that's happened in episode 7. Kaiana warning, Kaiana taking it into his own hands to try to do what he, you know, to try to solve this problem, right? A person like Captain Simon Metcalf, he's like, this kind of person cannot stay here. We need to take care of it. Kamehameha stopping him. So of course there's going to be conflict. And I think the setup, you know, works perfect by the time we get to this episode to let us know that these two men are not vibing and like they're not going to be able to make this work. But it really starts to let us feel a little bit more with Heke and Nahi, because Kaiana's like, we're out, like we're leaving, you know, and it leads us into, you know, that Niu Grove, right? The Sacred Niu Grove of Keala. And audiences finally get to see what we've been waiting for from these two characters to come together. First of all, I mean, we talked a little bit about Siua, but, you know, for you guys to be as close as you were, friends, to start getting into intimacy and, you know, that kind of stuff, I don't know, like, for most of us are not actors.
Yeah.
How easy is that, or how difficult is that? Like, what is that even like?
Yeah.
Like, really?
I love talking about Siua. He's my favorite person. He's so funny. I mean, I can't get across how kind, sweet, and funny Siua is. Like, in his most own way, he's such a great person, and he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Like, I love watching him. He's my favorite character. But I think, obviously our friendship, all of our friendship, the whole cast, truly everyone was such good friends.
Right.
Everybody got along. Like, I feel like they're some of my best friends now to this day. But with me and Siua, I guess, being an actor is such an unusual job, you know. It's like, okay, I'm just going to go to set and kiss my friend today, you know. But for me, I mean, I don't think for anybody it's a very typical, normal feeling thing to do. But I had to do it so many times, and, you know, the last manhunt.
Right.
I've had like a few times where I kind of had to do something like that. And then for Siua, I believe it was his first time having to do like an intimacy scene. It wasn't even, you know, anything that crazy, but it was nice. I hope that I could have supported him on that day to like make him feel comfortable and everything like that. But it was really natural because, you know, everybody is close and everybody really like looked out for one another, made sure everybody's okay on set. And am I doing something? Would you like to do the scene this way, you know? So that open communication and the friendship, I would say, made it all pretty easy.
I'm sure you know this story, but did you ever hear about his audition?
Yeah.
My
favorites are the guitar.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
He did something, and this is something that we look for, right? Like, you want to find what people do. Like, when you're auditioning, it's got to be a hard process because you don't know the full scale of what this character is going through. You just get pages and you have to guess, like, I should play it this way or play it this way. And like 99.8% people play the scenes the same.
Yeah.
You know, and it's trying to find a way to be different and to set yourself apart. So Siua did his audition and it was good, but then I don't know what possessed him to do this, but he decided to compose a song with all the lines that he just did, and he sang it on his guitar. And it was so funny because it was a scene, you know, about being a warrior and all this, and he's singing his lines, and it was so funny that we decided we have to just audition him to
bring him back
and to see how he's going to stack up, you know, from a different perspective or another way. And it was wonderful. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah, I love that story. I actually didn't know that throughout the whole filming of the show. I had no idea that he did that in his audition. It wasn't until we did an ICAN panel and he was talking to the students, and I was like, he's singing a song. Of course he's singing a song, you know?
Who does that?
Yeah.
He's only 6'6" with a guitar.
Yeah. He's the biggest hair in the world.
Yeah, he's basically singing like a love song, but it's all about being a warrior. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was perfect.
And that essence that he has like comes out so perfectly in Nahi. I think it's so well suited in a way to not completely play into the warrior archetype, playing like a little bit against it, kind of created that really interesting and really unique thing that is there about Nahi. He's like this big warrior teddy bear, and he has so many funny like one-liners that he threw into the show as well, and he's like, Mainei, today I'm going to say this. You think it's funny? And then tell me, I'm like, hilarious, bro. Go get him. You throw it in there.
Well, I will say this about Nahi, and this is rarely ever happen. Saying this about Siua, this has rarely ever happened. When we cast him for that role, I had an image of what that character was supposed to be like, you know, but he influenced what that character was going to be, because I originally wrote the character to be completely different, you know, but when we saw him and stacked him with Jason and Tekoe, like, I just saw something different in him, and it informed the writing process in a way that I've never actually done before, where we curated the character around him as opposed to writing a character and say, you need to be that, which is normally the way it works, right? But there was just something, like you said, there's something perfect. He's big. He's a big man, but he doesn't carry himself that way. Yeah. And it was very, very unique, and it became something really unique for a character. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one of those characters that we can say was written because Siua came to play. Like, Siua came. He presented something that was uniquely different. That's what distinguished him and made him different than the 99.9% of people who audition. That's what it was for him. So that's another lesson out there. Like, you just be yourself, you know, in this audition process, and it may or may not fit you. Yeah. While we're on that subject, just real quickly, I wanted to mention for people that are interested in acting, you know, coming out of Hawaii, it really is about that. It's about just presenting who you are. And there were so many people that auditioned that did wonderful. It just wasn't the right mold for them. And I wanted to mention that because I don't want people to get discouraged, because you're going to get told no. Like, the audition process is really a process of no. Yeah. Like, it's so hard to be the one person that gets the yes. Yeah. And please, I want people to understand that when you're auditioning, the no is not saying you're not good enough. Yeah. You know, the no is, we don't see the character going in that direction, you know, so just keep auditioning, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We see it all the time. Yeah. Really good actors that just didn't get it. It wasn't an indication of their ability. It's just the character wasn't quite there.
Yeah. And to add on to that even too, I remember that was a huge lesson for me as well within the show, because in the beginning, like I mentioned, we're all the women, we all read for ahumanu, that was the sides, and then you guys kind of moved us around through there. But I remember in the beginning, like, feeling such a huge responsibility to have to like read and be ahumanu, because I felt like, oh my gosh, I've had such a big opportunity, and I've done so much on set, and I've already worked so much, and you know, in Hawaii I feel like I've comparatively had a lot of experience. So I was like, oh, I have to do a good job. I have to be this character, you know, like. And so that process of auditioning for Ka'ahumanu was so difficult for me, because I felt like I was just like hitting a wall every time, and I couldn't figure out how to crack the scene, pretty much, like how to get there and be that ka'ahumanu that was the right ka'ahumanu for the show. And I remember as we started going through the auditions, and it just kind of, people were going to the characters that they were getting allocated to, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I blew it. I let Pa down. I let Jason down. Like, I let all these people who have invested so much time into helping me and mentoring me. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't be this ka'ahumanu. But on top of that, ka'ahumanu, the weight of that wahine, is immense. So that is another level, as a kanaka being like, oh, I gotta represent this woman who has so much mana. Am I that person, And so all of these levels. And so because I was just hitting this wall every single time with these auditions, when I didn't get ka'ahumanu and I got heke, I was so happy. Because, I was like, duh. Like, I'm not ka'ahumanu. I am heke, and I love heke. I'm so, so grateful that I got that character. But that was such a huge lesson to sometimes, like, as an actor, as an actress, you, just like you said, it's not that you aren't good enough. It's that wasn't for you.
Right.
And now, having gone through this whole experience, I couldn't imagine being any other character but heke. And I'm so grateful. And when I watched Lucy Annie, I'm like, oh, like, that is it. She's incredible. And when I watch Teao, I mean, she's kekupohi. She's incredible in her own way. And so we all fit perfectly into these different spaces. And I was I go to the ICAN workshops. There is so much talent. I mean, I personally believe Hawaii has so much talent, because I think with acting, this is actually something I learned recently from Alex Tarrant, who's at the ICAN things. It's like you can show the world what you've come to know about life. And here in Hawaii, we have such a unique perspective on life itself that is so different to all other actors.
Hopefully shows like this, not just us, but shows like this are allowing people to see themselves as main characters.
Yeah.
Like, we just haven't had the roles.
Yeah.
So someone like Siua, for example, we've been talking about, or, Brandon, for example, like, these are guys that have been able to live sort of in the space of doing small parts.
Yeah.
In roles that are kind of supporting, they're like background characters to somebody else's story. But when you put them front and center, they deliver.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that it allows not just people in Hawaii to, think, oh, that's cool, I could do that. But to also allow industry professionals to go, oh God, I never thought about somebody like this person, or somebody like her, or, like look at this talent pool that's there. So now our job is, now that spark hopefully is out there, is to nurture that and say, you guys, but you got to put in the work. Like, we talked about Luciana's work ethic the other day. I've seen you work. We talk about Brandon and Siua, Tekohe, Teao, like, obviously, Uncle Temeura, Cliff Curtis, like, the work ethic that they put in that's what separates you.
Yeah.
Like, the work that you're putting in separates you. And we already know, like, we've worked with Jason so long, I've never met anyone that works harder than him.
Yeah.
And he forces, I think that's one of the reasons why our partnership works.
Yeah.
Because he forces you to be a better version of yourself. And that's really what this is all about. So yes, if the spark is there, go for it. Find opportunities to be a part of groups like ICAN or whatever, but even like develop your own acting group, start a writing group, all of those things. Like, there was, we had a handful of actors that have hardly ever done anything, ever.
Yeah.
And they just found ways to put in some work and get themselves ready. Yeah. So I think what I was saying in a roundabout way, which I'll try to be more direct, our talent pool is high. Our experience is low.
Yeah.
Right? So find ways to push yourself, get yourself into scenarios where you're working at the craft, because you will grow exponentially.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a little motivational push because we need them, right?
Yeah,
we
me
need 'em.
too.
Like,
yeah.
We need people to come. We need people to be ready. Even more really than even asking people to get into acting is we need creators, writers. We need producers, directors, because look, we could keep doing our stuff, you know, and, you know, Jason and I creating a show like this allows for, you know, a number of roles and things that people can act in, which is great.
Yeah.
But if there was 5 other productions doing what we're doing, then, you know, there's just so much more work for all of us, you know. Sorry, I want to circle back to episode 8. In the Sacred Niu Grove, right? In the Niu Grove of Keomo. This is actually based on an actual event, right?
Yeah.
Following Keowa Ku'ahumula's character, Keowa Cliff Curtis. So that scene in the Grove was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Cliff? Because I remember that. I remember like standing right behind his shoulder, watching your face.
Yeah.
And you know, going head to head with him. Like, what was it like in that scene working with Cliff Curtis?
Yeah. That whole day was so intense. Like, I felt like there was just like this dark cloud over, I don't know, maybe it was just me that whole day, but just in anticipation for filming that scene, because it was just near the end of the day. And when we talk about that work ethic and we talk about Cliff on the show, I learned and saw a whole different level of work ethic with Uncle Cliff. He is relentless in his like pursuit of getting it right. And when I say that, I mean he's relentless in the pursuit of getting it right for the people he's representing. He is so thorough. I mean, he was on the phone with Okahi and Kiawe like all through the night, running lines just like again. And it would be a scene that he has like a few lines in, you know, and his dedication to the craft, but more so his dedication to the people is so admirable. And I think it really made all of us feel like, oh, you know, because he's been in it forever. I mean, he's a master, but he doesn't treat himself like he is.
Not at all.
He treats himself like this is his first job and he's got to nail it. And I think that's like the recipe and the key to his success, because he's such a hard worker and he's always trying to just really get it right. And I really admire that about him and Uncle Tim. They're both in that way. But going back to the day, it's so crazy because so we're there in this grove, and even from the very beginning, before we film the scene, Cliff comes on set and he's in character.
Yeah,
you know,
he doesn't miss a beat.
No, he's all there. And I remember we had kind of blocked the scene a little bit, and we were going to do this and we're going to do this. And then he just goes, no, that's not how we're doing this, because you're my niece and we know each other and la la la. Like, you know, he had all those connections, which obviously we all know, but he just had to bring that straight to the forefront.
Right.
You know, and just be like, we are Ohana. I might do something absolutely despicable to Nahi, but I am not going to go any further. I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to like come up to your face and agitate you. Like, that is not what I would do as Ohana. Like, even if we're not close, even if I haven't seen you since the day you were born, I'm not going to do that to you. And he's so thorough with all of those characterizations and all of those relationships. So it was really interesting to see him kind of like reblock the scene, you know? Yeah. And I'll never forget another really funny and unexpected thing on that day, because when I step on set, you know, my ohana, they don't really come to set that often, so they don't see me in that environment. And I kind of feel like this sense of like freedom where I'm like, yeah, this is like actor said my name, you know, I'm over here doing this, like, you know, no shame, all good. And then the kahuna was my uncle Kalani Vieira.
Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna do the hardest scene in the whole series with my uncle watching me on the other side.
No, that's right. No. I didn't realize you guys had that connection, but obviously, yeah, you know, from Kauai and Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, he was there.
He was there.
He was there getting taken away by Kiowa's warriors. But no, that was actually really cool to see him there on that day. But yes, I was like, that's going on. Cliff's re-walking the whole scene. And then on top of that, we've got, he like calls over the props guy and he's like, bring me this coconut frond. So he brings him this frond and he goes, make it into like something you would give to a kid. And the guy was like, what are you talking about? Make it into like a toy. Can you make it into stuff? So Auntie comes over and she ties the thing and makes it into like this little pinwheel.
Yeah.
And I was like, you are despicable.
Oh, yeah.
Man, he's doing like the most despicable, evil scene, and he's just like playing with his little kid's pinwheel. And so just to see the process of that type of genius happening in front of me was so cool. I feel so privileged to have been there on that day, and of course Siua as well. Kind of just watching that all go down and that all kind of build together. And he was scaring me, like as a person. So that kind of all was adding to that scene as well. Of course, on that day we also had shot in that same area with Keala, the felling of that tree, and Keala in his own right is like, oh man, he's also one of my favorite characters. He is incredible.
Ōpūnui.
He is, Ōpūnui is incredible. Keala's was so awesome to work with as well. So all of these different pieces, but yeah, the moment of being taken in front of Keoa, in front of Cliff,
right,
and having this kind of intimate moment, but like terrible moment at the same time. It's kind of a weird moment because in my head I kind of envisioned it where I was going to be like, struggling and trying to like, because if that happened to you, you would want to rip that person's face off, if they're right here in front of you. And then it just didn't even turn into that, because that relationship that we had. So it's kind of like this really played against moment,
right,
and like devastating moment at the same time. But yeah, that was crazy. I still can't believe I watched that scene. I'm like, oh my God, it's me with Cliff Curtis. Look, Mom.
No, it was incredibly intense.
Yeah.
It was also one of these things that Cliff was very, very excited to have that scene because he knew that his characters talked about a lot as being a warrior, an accomplished warrior. So, but he physically wanted to do it. Like, he wanted to like showcase that this character is formidable.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately why we fell on this idea of, Keoa coming face to face and, killing Nahi.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I really like the way that fight was designed too, because like you said, we don't get to see Keoa in battle. Even I think in episode 9, there's not really a moment where he has a big vignette. But I really like the way it was designed because it's that master kind of, not kupuna, but sort of kupuna compared to Nahi. Mm-hmm. And like that really raw strength of someone young who's very tall, very strong, mm-hmm. but that mastering of the art of war, and you just see him kind of like be so strategic in his hits. So I thought it was a really well done sort of fight to show like his prowess without.
Oh, it was. Yeah, that was Uncle Lee Minor.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Lua Master Practitioner, and I remember asking him specifically, like, can you please like design something that's all strategic, mm-hmm. all strikes, but what Cliff does so well is, he takes a beating.
Yeah,
but he doesn't care. Like that was all him. Like, let me figure out how to let you know that that's nothing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember watching that scene with Jason after we shot it, and just like Jason's like, he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah.
When you found out that Nahi was gonna die, was that, I don't know, like what was going on with you? What was the thought process? Did you find out? I don't remember if we told you before or if you read it. Like, do you remember how you even found out about that?
Well, can I say what I think it is?
Sure.
And then, well, I remember in the beginning we were we were like, who is gonna die?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
There was a moment where we didn't know who it was going to be that was going to die, but obviously, you know, somebody, you have to feel that tragedy right before the finale. And so we weren't sure who was gonna die. Could have been me. And so when we found out it was Nahi, I think we were like a ways into filming, like quite a way in.
Yeah.
And as friends, we were all like, no.
It was bad. It caused a stir on the whole set.
I think we made like Save Nahi t-shirts.
Yeah.
And
there was a hashtag Save Nahi campaign.
Yeah.
Like people were wanting to do. I was getting approached by people from all different departments.
Yeah.
And they're like, we read the pages. They were like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I remember telling them, the reaction that you're having is exactly why we need to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because we need that. Like, it's going to add so much. And let me just reference something, because the death of Nahi in Keomo is not history.
Yeah.
That's not historically accurate. We did that because, look, we're never guaranteed a season 2.
Yeah.
You know, this could be very well all that's ever seen. You know, and for us to present a story, to have, you know, that kind of feeling at the end, like you said, we're leading to episode 9, which is our finale episode, we're leading to that. Then, you know, we just really going over it, it's like the family hasn't really suffered any real loss.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a difficult conversation. We thought about it for a while, because you're right, here we are trying to bring you two together. It takes 8 episodes.
Yeah.
We finally get you guys together, and then we just yank it away.
Yeah, straight away.
Yank it away. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know how relevant this is for the conversation in general. Think about editing this, but ultimately it comes down to that Nahi does die. Historically, he does die.
Yeah.
And, you know, I definitely wanted to make sure that we covered that emotional impact on the family.
Yeah.
And, but you're right. Side note, we did consider Heke.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. I mean, tragic lovers.
Yeah.
One of them got to go.
One of them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, ultimately it did come down to, even though that it's not historically accurate for him to die here, he does die. And we wanted to capture, you know, the impact of that on the family. And really that leads us to also Jason's scene. Yeah. And he kills it. Yeah. Jason is top form. I mean, I was so proud of him that day. Yeah. I mean, it was so good. Yeah. Yeah. That cliff scene.
Yeah. You know. All the scenes related to the whole of are so, I mean, I don't want to say well done by Jason because it's tragic, but he really went all in and he went a step further. Because I've been with him on so many sets where he's had to go and have a lot of difficult scenes on the day, and watching him prepare for those scenes, and like say for C, you know, he was getting brutally bashed like every day and having something happening with his children, and he's crying, and that was a hard show for him. But like this was, he didn't hold anything back. And the scene with Nahi finding him and Tekohe as well, so well done. And they all really kind of in real life do have that brotherly relationship too. So yeah, man, he was so beautiful. And as well in the scene with the Evie, that was like, to be there on that day, filming that scene in Aotearoa, the whole crew, even after cut, like, not a sound. Right. Not a sound. And
well, there was a lot of prep that went into that scene. Yeah. And we had Kamaka Ole, like help oversee the process of, you know, the ceremonial process of taking care of the bones and, you know, what that would look like. So we got to put together something that isn't a fabrication on what would be done. There were little nuances, things that we you know, we had to change inevitably because of the situation. But yeah, I mean, it was a great learning experience for everyone involved, for production, to have an understanding of, you know, why is there so much care to the iwi, to the bones? And what does death from a Hawaiian perspective look like? And how is it treated? And, you know, that was something we really got to dive into in this episode, which was, you know, wonderful that we get to do stuff like that, you know. there is a different perspective on death, and even, you know, something as what would seemingly be foreign to everyone else, but the importance of bones and, you know, the care for them, or the complete disregard is like the bones is the thing that carries that mana, you know, and so the way we were able to do that, and then, I mean, you know, this is Brian Mendoza's episode, you know, and like for him to dig in and do what he does, and it was just a great showcase. I mean, this is really, really, it's a powerful episode.
It is. Yeah. It's a huge episode.
Yeah. One thing we get to in this episode as well is we kind of go back to Oahu, and we've been leading the King Kahikili, you know, his son, Kalanikūpule, Kupule's character, Brandon's character, and we're starting to see where these guys are landing. And God, there's just a lot that happens in this episode, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much. Their dynamic is so interesting, like that slow burn of watching like that rifts, and also like, you know, rubbing against one another all the way until that moment is, you know, Kupule Brandon is one of my favorite characters. Obviously, Temeura, one of my favorite characters too. Seeing
those two work together, it was actually quite great, you know. And I will say this, I mean, you know, Brandon always had a place on this show. You know, it was just a matter of finding, you know, where he sat, and putting him as Kupule made so much sense. And I do remember it was even before we cast him, Cliff had said, we had a conversation with Cliff because this is during the, you know, the casting portion. And Cliff mentioned, he goes, find somebody young, give them an opportunity to grow. He says, because when you put somebody with a seasoned actor like Temeura, it will elevate their performance. Yeah. And that was the pinnacle of that statement.
Yeah.
Cliff, it was almost prophetic the way he said that. And it really led us to, like, in the casting process going, that's Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon is Kupule, based purely on that idea.
Yeah.
You know, because originally Kupule, Kalanikūpule, in my head, it was going to be someone that was around Iana's age.
Yeah.
You know, that they would have grown up together and that they would have had this kind of relationship, you know. But when he said that, it made so much sense, and it allowed us to play on the dynamics of son and father, and for it to culminate this way. Like, imagine being the son of a man that you believe might be kind of losing his mind, you know. And how do you support that? Do you support that? You know, Kupule is a character that understands the great lineages of Maui, and understands the might and the strength of this kingdom, and would want to honor that, would want to be, you know, in line to be able to lead righteously and be a good person. I actually truly believe at the core of this story, and actually in history, without Kamehameha, Kupule could have been a great ruler. He could have been the one to bring everything together. Maui could have been, you know, we would have been Mauians, you know, and we would have been this united kingdom of Maui, and Kupule could have been that person, you know. But he just had a father that just made it difficult for him. And in episode 8, you know, that bone temple scene, you know, when we see Kupule, when we see Kahikili getting to that place where it's like, Kupule is finally seeing his father, like, I don't know if there is any saving him. And having that moment to where he decides, I need to take him out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And touching on putting that young actor with a seasoned veteran like Uncle Tim, Brandon was the perfect person to do it, because he is, I mean, really, truly such an incredible actor. He can be anyone. He loves what he does, and he was so dedicated. I remember when we first got the production office just over here in Honolulu, we had this little room. It's probably like it was one of my favorite memories from the whole show, is being in this little room with Keawe, Siua, Brandon, and we're all going through all of our lines from maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes. And obviously Brandon has he's got so many lines. I mean, the first episode Oh my God. He killed it. He did so good. But he was just standing there like this in front of the whiteboard for like hours on end, you know, with Keawe going through every single thing. And he's so dedicated, and his leo is so beautiful. Yeah. So, you know, his performance is incredible. And to also have Temeura, on the other hand, I mean, you see it in everything that he does, especially once we're warriors, his ability to switch on a dime, to be like right on like the edge of a knife between father and then just this like ferocious being. He's always like right there, and you never know which one it's going to be. And to see Brandon be that son who's so aware of what's going on but really wants to, you know, push forward but isn't sure, and he's so good at like internalizing that conflict that you can see it all on his face at the same time. So much harder said than done. Like there's so much nuance in both of their performances, and they're some of my favorite characters.
Yeah. You know, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and I didn't mean to brush over it, but it was a difficult thing to even conceive and to figure out how to do it in a tasteful way. But after your scene with Cliff, and you're being released to send a message home, right? To send that message, and Ōpūnui takes you back. We don't dig deep into it, and we didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But, you know, there is the subject that I think is worthy to discuss and to talk about a little bit, is how Ōpūnui would take advantage of an innocent, you know, woman. You know, and it was a difficult process, but we're alluding, you know, to her being raped.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you prepare for something like that, or can you prepare for something like that? Like,
yeah, I mean, I felt in a way there, which kind of almost helped. There wasn't too much time to prepare, because we, for a while, didn't know how it was going to be shot. And I think it went all the way up to almost maybe like 1 month before we wrapped in Aotearoa.
Right.
And when we shot that scene, it was in a little stream. And I really liked the way that Brian decided to shoot that, because it wasn't so on the nose.
Right.
I don't think anyone wants to see that. And it tells you everything you need to know in one shot. And it's so beautifully shot. But the day that we shot that, I was so nervous, obviously. You know, you never really know how it's going to be until you're there on the day, so you just prepare as much as you can. And I mean, for something like that, it's like, how much can you really prepare, you know? Right. That's such a difficult thing to navigate mentally as a wahine, as an actor. And when we did shoot it, I didn't really know, but that they were going to put me in the river. And this is the middle of winter in Aotearoa. Right. And I remember our first AD comes into the trailer, and he was like, do you want to shoot the scene now? Because it was at the top of the call sheet, and it would have been, you know, 7:38 in the morning. The river was freezing cold. I was like, please put me in now. Because I wanted the water to be so cold, just because I felt like that would help me in a way, you know, because it was definitely scary to go into and to face a scene like that. But the river was freezing.
Yes, it is.
It definitely helped. But yeah, it was really hard. And I think the hardest part is I usually feel pretty comfortable having those types of scenes now on set. I feel like in my career I've been in so many things where I'm having absolute mental breakdowns, and, you know, in front of a set of people, and you're going crazy in front of, like, you know, 50 people watching you or not watching. And so usually I was like, oh, yeah, I'm used to this, but it was just different. And after that, I remember we had to record some wild lines, which is after you shoot the scene, if they need little textural sounds and stuff. And Brian was like, can we shoot some wild lines of you like screaming in pain, like as if it's the Ōpūnui thing happening, and like I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I told Brian, I was like, I'm so sorry. I think I tried like once or twice, and I was like, I can't get myself to do it, which is pretty rare. But I like that scene a lot too, because it doesn't hit it straight on the head. So you're kind of like, wait.
Yeah.
No way.
There's a little bit of a, wait, did anything happen? What happened?
Yeah.
It allows us to really kind of think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it doesn't give it to you all at once. And then you're like, oh my gosh. So as a character, you kind of sit with that for a second before she goes back. But just to think about like, oh my gosh, going straight from Nahi, seeing that with your own two eyes, and then, you know, within 30 minutes going to that and then having to walk home.
Right.
Like that thought process, going through that like personally as an actor, then getting back, like once you see the rest of Heke's journey,
right,
you get it.
Right.
You know, especially, as anyone, as a woman, you're like, you're fighting, you know, right, you've got every reason to fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing about this character, that in the creation process, like allowing her to go through a few different arcs.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's the obvious arc that you see as she's introduced, you know, just this beautiful, she's the one thing in the family that's not all about warrior culture. Mm-hmm. She's a nurturer of life, not a worker of death, you know, and it's quite endearing to see among this family. And then sort of the movement towards, you know, as changes are happening, and, you know, her saying, you know, I think I would like to learn to fight. And you're wondering, is this really a need to learn to fight, or is it an excuse to be close to Nahi?
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of get an idea of this relationship is going somewhere, you know. But to turn the arcs on a dime, that was the one thing that we thought, first of all, is very interesting for a character in general. But knowing that you could do that and become something. So we won't get into it now because, you know, this is episode 9 is coming, and, you know, we want people to tune in. But just knowing that this character is now going to be on a different journey, clearly, right? Because you can't take that kind of trauma and be the same person, you know? And that was the thing. And that was something that we knew we could entrust with you. And so you did an amazing job in episode 8. And that's one reason why I wanted to have this sit down talk session with you to dig into it a little bit from your point of view and your character's point of view. So thank you. Mahalo for being here.
Yeah, mahalo for having me.
Mahalo nui to our viewers and listeners for joining us as we dug deeper into the brilliance and burdens of Hawaii's chiefs beyond what was experienced in the Chief of War show. I'm Pa'akai Sibbett. Until next time, aloha.